Greetings, it's just no one here. Today we're gonna go over some religious mods for Skyrim. And I'm not talking like real life religions, no. I'm talking about the in-game religions, the lore religion. Something that is a big part of the Elder Scrolls, but kind of slept on to be honest. Besides some Daedric quest and maybe an encounter or mention of the Aedra, you just don't really get the whole religious aspect. So first up, we got before after marriage end. This is just going to be useful in general because you don't gotta slay your, ex every time. And also, if you're just role playing a more promiscuous character and you don't want to be held down to just one person, this also allows you to do that. So, you can be promiscuous and not have to murder your, lover to go to somebody else. Not exactly Aedra-like. I mean, Debella might not mind you sleeping around, but she doesn't want you to be a murderer, you know what I mean? So, the way this works is like if your spouse dies or you get the divorce thing, it's just the regular way you would get married. It's not really any different in that regard. So, remarrying is the same as regular marrying. The divorce, though, you actually have to remove the bond of matrimony ring completely from your inventory. Like, don't just take it off your, equipped. Like, no, actually drop it or put it in a chest or something. Then the dialogue will pop up for your spouse, and Maramal himself will even also. So if you don't got the balls to tell your lover to their face, I guess go to Maramal and tell him instead you want a divorce. But you can break up with your spouse right to their face then and there. So I guess you could simulate you, actually having a fight and stuff. Once they go back to being their, normal self, they won't actually go back completely normal. Like if they're a follower or like a mercenary, whatever, they can still just be your follower. It didn't like make them not want to be a follower or anything. They still like you, I guess. They still have the job faction too. Like they will still sell stuff. So they're still going to be a merchant. If they're a follower, they're still going to like you and just follow you for free. Just remember that. Next up, before we finally really start getting into the more religious sides of the mods, this is no minimum level for quests. We're going to actually take away the level ups that we would need to do certain Daedric quests. And I guess other quests too, but particularly we're talking about the Daedric quest here, because we want to be able to do those Daedric quests as soon as possible in case you're worshipping that deity, and sometimes the Daedra are a little bit more finicky where you actually gotta at least start their quest line for their Daedric artifact, otherwise they just don't really give you the time of day. Despite it saying no minimum level for quest, it's kind of ironic that it does actually require you to level up one time, so like you could technically do any Daedric quest right at the beginning of the game, but you would have to at least level up one time. But that's not very hard. I mean, level 1 to 2 is pretty easy. You'll probably do that before you even leave Helgen. Not a big deal. But that's just like, it's not that it's not working, it's just you need to level up at least once. If you're wondering like, why am I not able to do these quests like literally right at level 1, that is why. Winter Sun, Faiths of Skyrim. At the beginning of the game, or once you pretty much get out of the cave of Helgen, or just outside and starting the game, in case you're using a mod that begins the game differently, around the time it offers you survive mode, it will offer you an option to choose a racial deity. Depending on what race you pick, you will have different options for these deities, because it will even have like Khajiit deities that you can worship too if you're a Khajiit. But you don't necessarily have to be that race to worship certain gods and stuff. It's just a matter of finding their shrine or books even. You can read like Boethiah's Proving is a good example because their quest can start from one, but other ones can also have influence on you through like their books, so you can join them that way. And when you do join or follow a deity, you can now have the pray power, which actually has this animation where you pray. You worship at their shrines, which is still praying at their shrines, but the animation will change to look, like you're actually more like like, oh, like Heimskir. Basically, you're like at that like shrine, you know. You're just not screaming. And then you also gotta follow their tenets and avoid their taboos. So you actually gotta change how you play, essentially, to follow them and gain favor with them. And favor is, you know, how much they like you, and how much they like you depends on how much the buff of you're gonna get. If you're just a regular low-class follower of them, you get, you know, one basic ability. But if you're an actual high-ranking, you know, favored one, then you'll have a devotee ability. Custom shrines around the world, 50 deities total now, and that probably means there's not necessarily 50 new shrines. I only found like 3, and I might show you guys where those particular 3 are. They're each 3 deities that are definitely new and interesting, but are not necessarily like new. It's just we don't get to see them or, you know, hear anything about them really. Yeah, something you also might want to note, not all places that you can go to, like shrine wise, like Boethia's Saculum or whatever it's called, that is not really a place you're gonna necessarily go like shrine wise, despite it being like her shrine, because you basically have to start a quest or read her book in order to get it. Like, you know, some Daedra are kind of different on how you go about the quest, but all of them you're definitely gonna stumble across it at some point, especially if you have like the, you know, mods I have here. It'll increase your chance and your likelihood that you'll want to actually go and find these new enchanted, you know, artifacts and stuff like that that we're gonna go over. Another thing I was gonna say about the shrines is, if you are at the shrine, like Perry, right, for instance, he had a mammoth skull that I had to activate for his shrine, but I couldn't find anything at Boethia's. But and at first I didn't think I could find anything there. Nothing I thought was going to be his, you know, like activation for his shrine was actually it. But the mammoth skull, I guess, was it. So it's kind of hidden back there on the tree there. But that's just like another weird example. Just kind of look around and, you know, try different things. Remember that it's not just the shrines. There's books, and, you know, starting their quest in general sometimes just starts their option for following them. So now we're going to go on to Legendary Daedric Artifacts PS4. Now there's many different Daedric artifact mods, so honestly it's your choice. And then we have Adric Amulet Overhaul. The thing is with the Adra is, unless you're like doing Creation Club or mod or something, there's not really any Adric artifacts that we can get our hands on. Closest thing we got is the amulets. I mean, that's the only Adric artifacts we really have. And there's some mods that will increase the amulets, you know, strength and stuff to make them more viable and worth carrying around. But a lot of them will touch on the blessings too, and messing with those altars messed with the Winter Sun's Face of Skyrim, because, you know, they're both kind of messing with altars there. So that couldn't work. But luckily I found this one that only messes with the amulets, and it keeps them all pretty much, I think, the same as they originally were, but just buffs them, so they actually are a little bit more viable. The only one that isn't changed is Amulet of Talos. It says the Amulet of Zenithar is not changed, but it is changed. It's 25% better, not 10%. They might have changed their mind and just forgot to change the description, I don't know. But it is 25%. But the thing you need to note about this mod is, I had to put it down here, I guess as low as I could, and put it specifically, I believe, below Legendary Daedric Artifacts. Even though that these touch on not even the same objects, the person did actually give you a warning about, like, enchantment overhauls. And I guess since this is overhauling Daedric artifacts, and they're technically enchanted weapons and armor, it decided it didn't want to play necessarily nice, so I had to put this one after Legendary Daedric Artifacts. That way it would actually work. And it did. So, yeah, I would load this one lower and definitely pass something like Legendary Daedric Artifacts. Here are the altars I found on the map. And until next time, bye.